Well, it's official, ladies and gentlemen. E3
is dead.
And while there's been speculation for a while that this was the road E3 was headed in, and while the ESA insisted that they would keep trying to bring the event back, it is now officially confirmed by the ESA that E3 will no longer be a thing, that the ESA will no longer try to organize E3. It will not try to be resuscitated. It will remain buried 6 feet under. So this right here was first reported by Gene Park in this article published on December 12, 2023. He tweeted, "Exclusive, E3 is officially dead. The ESA confirms with me that the event has now been brought to a close." The expo had a pretty good run. It started in 1995, and then the last in-person event was in 2019. There was like an online version of the event, I believe in 2021. So roughly like a 25-year run, which is pretty damn good, and it was often considered to be the Super Bowl of gaming events. This was where essentially all of gaming gathered, from the industry side of things, to the media side of things, to the developer side of things, to the community side of things. And no matter what feelings you may have about E3, there's no denying that E3 was quite the institution, and it was a major part of gaming for a very long time. So to now get the official news that E3 is no more, as expected as it is, it's still kind of strange. So here is Gene Park's article from the Washington Post that broke the news. The headline here reads, "E3, once gaming's biggest expo, is officially dead." And right here we have a quote from the ESA's president and CEO, Stanley Pierre-Louis, who said, "After more than 2 decades of hosting an event that has served as a central showcase for the US and global video game industry, they are bringing E3 to a close. We know the entire industry, players and creators alike, have a lot of passion for E3. We share that passion. We know it's difficult to say goodbye to such a beloved event, but it's the right thing to do given the new opportunities our industry has to reach fans and partners." For the longest time, E3 dominated gaming events. It was the most watched gaming event. It's where the biggest announcements happened from the big 3 platform holders, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony. It's where third-party publishers would go balls to the walls and pull all stops when it comes to announcements. But slowly but surely, E3 began to lose its relevance as companies began to realize that they didn't necessarily need E3 to make all of their big announcements, especially in this digital age, in this social media age, where Nintendo could host, say, like a Nintendo Direct, and people would tune in anyways, no matter when Nintendo streamed such an event, and they could control the messaging, and they could kind of do things their way. And so I think Nintendo Direct is where that first domino was tipped towards this chain reaction. And then came 2018 when PlayStation decided to pull out of the event. Sony also realized they could do their own presentations and formats and streams in their own time, and seemingly just were not happy with the way E3 did things, or did not want to follow their timetable. And that, I think, was really the first big fracture that led to the eventual downfall of E3, especially as E3 failed to adapt with the times. And then another major blow came in the form of Jeff Keeley himself deciding to quit helping the ESA with the E3 show. At one point, he essentially became the face of E3, and him deciding to say goodbye to E3 and start his own thing, Summer Game Fest. That was also not a great sign for E3's future. That was a sign of rough tidings ahead for an event that already looked like it was on its way out, and now that transition is complete. Summer Game Fest is essentially now the new E3, and Jeff Keeley is going to lead the charge on that front. The last real E3, or the last in-person E3, was again back in 2019. In 2020, the event had to be canceled altogether because that's when the pandemic hit, and that made it impossible to organize E3. But then in 2021, the event did return, but it was all purely digital. But it was just a shadow of what E3 normally was. Now, there were plans to bring back E3 in 2022, but then we learned on March 31st, 2022, just 3 months before June, which is when E3 usually takes place, that E3 2022 was canceled in full because the ESA wanted to essentially regroup and see if they could revitalize E3 by essentially going back to the drawing board and reorganizing E3 and just, trying to change things to try to make the entire event more relevant and trying to find ways to combine both physical attendance and online interactions. And they promised that the show would be back in 2023. In fact, on June of 2022, ESA's president insisted very confidently that E3 would return in 2023 2023, he assured that there were big plans ahead and that they were working towards reshaping E3 into something that was more relevant. But at this point, people are not holding their breaths. I mean, this is 3 times now that E3 had been canceled in a row, and more publishers were moving away from E3 as a venue of major announcements, often taking to their own timeline with their own streams and direct style presentations. Optics were also not helped by the fact that the way E3 was organized on a year-by-year basis just became more and more disorganized as they try to jam-pack more and more people through public tickets into the limited-sized LA Convention Center. There was that one incident where E3 essentially doxed all of the media attendees because they just left up a list of personal information up on their website for anyone to easily access. And that was a whole controversy within itself. And there was just this general sense that the ESA was not taking good care of E3 and was not having any semblance of good foresight surrounding how it needs to evolve. And once it was announced that E3 2023 had been canceled, at that point, it was basically the nail in the coffin. At that point, there was basically no coming back. IGN reported on the situation, and it was cited that the event simply did not garner the sustained interest necessary to execute it in a way that would showcase the size, strength, and impact of our industry. Indeed, in the months leading up to when E3 2023 was supposed to take place, Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation announced that they would not be attending the event. Even Ubisoft decided to pull out last minute. And at that point, it was very clear that not only is there a lack of interest surrounding E3, and that not only is E3 2023 not happening, that E3 as a whole, its days were numbered. Now, for E3 2023, the ESA had partnered with Redmond, who have helped organize events, successful events like PAX, but even that partnership fell apart not that long ago. Recall that on September 7th, 2023, just a few months ago, it was announced that Redmond and the ESA would part ways over E3. Now, at the time, it was stated that E3 2024 may still happen, but not at the LA Convention Center. The way the ESA framed things at the time, this was a quote from ESA's CEO, was that they look forward to sharing news about E3 in the coming months, as if plans were still in motion to try to bring E3 back. Redmond said this: while we will not be involved with the future of E3, we look forward to seeing its evolution and where the ESA takes it, seemingly suggesting that a future might still be possible for E3. But I think at this point, the general public knew that with everything, every aspect of E3 falling apart, from all the major platform holders to major publishers no longer really being interested in E3 to major event organizers steering clear, it became obvious that E3's fate was sealed. And thus, that finally brings us to yesterday, December 12th, 2023, when E3 released the following statement to the public, stating, after more than 2 decades of E3, each one bigger than the last, the time has come to say goodbye. Thanks for the memories. And you can see right here how big of a deal this is. As much as E3 was memed on, and as much as people saw the writing on the wall, this was still this major institution. It was still this major event that a lot of people have fond memories of, which is why this tweet by itself garnered 28.3 million views and over 200,000 likes. And you'll see in the responses here, in the quote tweets, everyone's talking about how ultimately sad this is and just sharing all of the fond memories that they have of this event. I mean, for me personally, at E3 is where I met so many colleagues within the games industry. It's where I met so many industry folks, so many developers, where I got to try out so many cool demos. I remember E3, was it 2015, when Metal Gear Solid 5's launch was still imminent. I mean, I got to go there and check out the Metal Gear Solid 5 booth and try out the game for myself for the first time. And I remember the excitement, the thrill, and I do have fond memories of E3, as much as I did complain about it and the way it was organized, and as much as I knew that eventually this would not work out if the ESA did not make some adjustments. There's no denying that there was a certain energy and vibe to E3 that was electric and that made these events ultimately memorable for all the good and bad parts that it came with. And I mean, for every cringe moment that has been immortalized, there was also a really epic moment worthy of a standing ovation, whether it's Sony's domination of Xbox when they announced the PlayStation 4 and its features and its pricing, to Keanu Reeves showing up at E3 for Cyberpunk 2077, to old school moments like Shigeru Miyamoto just being cheered on by Zelda fanatics after the reveal of Twilight Princess. I mean, there are a lot of epic moments to reflect on too. Even developers took to social media to express their gratitude towards E3 and to pay tribute to this event where many developers got their start, or where many developers got to show off their game for the first time, and through which they managed to gain a foothold in this industry and introduce their games to the world. Hideo Kojima himself, I mean, he introduced a Metal Gear Solid 2 at E3 2000. This was the particular E3 that Kojima decided to recall, as this was a pretty special one for him, and this is where he began to play the mind games surrounding the real nature of Metal Gear Solid 2 and its real protagonist and the messaging behind that whole game and its, like intentionally deceptive marketing, if you will, the meta game of the marketing itself. And then you got plenty of other developers who shared their experiences, their memories, and just all of the amazing experiences that they had at E3. Developers across the board. Cory Barlog, who got to share, God of War 2018 to great fanfare at E3. So it is still like, a bit of a heartbreak. And when you see this level of outpour of tributes from the gaming community, from media outlets, from developers and whatnot, you really begin to realize and reflect on the massive impact that E3 had and what an important venue it was towards gaming getting the kind of attention that it was eventually able to garner, and it becoming, what is now the biggest media industry in the world. Now, interestingly, one person who hasn't said a word about E3 is Jeff Keeley, who is the host of Summer Game Fest, which is now taking over E3 essentially. There's no post, no tweet, no heartfelt message about E3, which is rather interesting given that, while I get that there might have been some kind of rift between Jeff Keeley and E3, while I get that Jeff Keeley is now doing his own thing with Summer Game Fest, E3 was a big part of Jeff Keeley's life, and he himself being a gamer, I know for a fact that E3 had a big impact on him. But there's not a single word from him, which that's his prerogative. He can do whatever he wants. He has been liking tweets of developers and people in the gaming community offering their tribute towards E3. But he himself has not issued any kind of statement whatsoever. I guess for him, it's just onwards and forwards. I wonder just if there was some kind of major falling out between Jeff Keeley and E3, because he's been really cold towards E3 ever since his departure from it. Whatever the case, this is a situation that definitely had a major ripple effect across the entire gaming industry and the gaming community. Not surprising, but definitely still felt, definitely still, the end of an era, if you will. But for those who are seeking some information about what happened to E3, what led to its downfall, and, just wanted a general reporting on the fact that E3 is officially over for good this time, officially. This is everything you need to know. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the official death of E3. Just what are your general feelings towards this situation, and what are some of your E3 experiences that you'd like to share? And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.